7.
This
Welcome to actual recording is higher quality. Oh, that's cool. That was a nice little note they gave us. So hopefully this looks a little bit better for you than it looks for us if you're watching this. Which I doubt it. And it's got the. You probably can't see this, but no one wants to hear this. What up, man?
is a sad episode. You seem happy. What's going on?
I shouldn't be happy. For those
You
of
sh-
you who are watching, once again, I'm all out of booze on the boat. And I literally had to cut open a Costco brand popsicle with 8% vodka that was on this boat when we bought it, just chilling in the freezer. So that's where I'm at emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, metaphysically. Yeah, I've been better.
Sure. You're talking about the uploaded as it's going on. Is that what you're talking about?
Can you see it on your end?
Yeah, I can see it.
Cool. Cool, cool.
Now, the last one that we used said the same thing, and it said it was all good, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't all good. So
I even took a picture of
when it said it's all good,
wait, wait.
nah, not today, brother.
Brother. Anyways, it says recording uploaded. So I was like, okay, cool. Recording upload. Oh, wait.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yep. I was like, okay, well.
False information because nah. So real
So this
quick,
software doesn't have to be much better. Like it just has
has
to
to
do what
provide.
it says that
Yeah,
it does. And then
doesn't
it'll
have
be
the
our new favorite software.
user interface can be garbage. Just has to upload this stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Um, real quick, what has your conception of the mark of the beast changed over the years? Like a biblical mark of the beast.
To the extent, so the number thing, I don't hold that so literally anymore. So like as a
666.
child,
Like it's not
yeah,
like just
as a
on your.
child, it was just like, okay, everyone will be marked by the beast. The beast, his number is 666. So everyone will have a 666 on them. It's like, that's probably not the case, or it might not be the case. And then there's people will take that and they'll run wild with it and they'll be like, Donald Trump, Donald has 6 letters in it. And it's like, you know, they'll there's a lot of different ways to play with the number 666. But if my conception of the mark of the beast has changed over the years, that's the most obvious way. It's like I feel like 666 probably won't be as obvious as just like 666. And then maybe it will. Like I can imagine some super like progressive, charismatic individual who's like if Elon Musk came out and was like, we're naming our next rocket 666. People will be like, oh, that's so ironic. And then he, it's like, it could be out there in plain sight. No one would care because everybody loves him. And he could be the old hashtag Antichrist. Those are big hands. Damn. But they
Sure.
got big hands. This camera doesn't even do him justice.
Yeah, it's formatted hot dog style.
Melted strawberry
I'm
popsicle.
telling you, man, you know what I think you should do. Refreeze that into a cube, and then once it's frozen, throw it off the boat. Go get a 6 pack of Miller Lite.
Talk to me about the Beast, baby. Is Mr. Beast, has he changed in your mind over the years?
I think somewhat. Like I grew up watching the Left Behind series. I didn't. I watched them all maybe once, and that happened when I was growing up. So that's how it is. But um, that movie's very literal. Like it's kind of fear based. The end times left behind. Like the two witnesses are the rest of the reality is it plays by the rules of physics except for the two witnesses. And the two witnesses are these fire breathing, untouchable people that go to modern day Israel and just, fuck shit up. And it's like, I, and at this point in my life, I don't believe that. I also, when it comes to numerology, say like the number six, I think it's like the flesh number, right? It's the human fallen flesh number. And seven is the number of perfection. Now, I've only read very vaguely in my life about numerology. And it's like, okay, well, the number six is a perfect seven, which is the lucky number seven, which is the seven wonders of the world. Which, how many other eight? I don't know, but like so it's the perfect seven, but then it's -1. So we can clearly see that anything that is triply represented as the -1 of a seven is the incarnate of the flesh, which is, and it's just like you start getting into that and you're like, but what is that real? Like it's the same thing with constellations. Constellations are relative. Like from the earth, the Big Dipper looks the way it does. But if you were on, say, a planet in a solar system that's 50 light years from here, those same stars, I actually don't even know enough to know if they would be visible from the human eye. I would think so. Considering there's stars that are visible that are a lot farther away, but they would not be in the same exact pattern as they are from here. But then you get into people who like make that an entirely narrative thing that you can just build and build off of. So that's kind of how I view the beast. Like I'm not really sure where I stand, but it's definitely changed from that literal sense. Can I just say samesies? I should have said samesies. That was my chance.
I don't think this has anything to do with the mark of the beast. I feel like
Now you.
you're just trying to take cheap shots at people who subscribe to astrology.
What is it? Waning. It's a waning crescent right now. I think, right?
Doug, so
Mercury's in retrograde. I think.
I learned I learned about this briefly, and I'm gonna try to regurgitate it, but I'm gonna butcher it. I learned about this briefly in like astronomy 101, and you're probably aware of this, but since the Earth is tilted on its 13-degree axis,
And stuff like this.
blah blah blah, and it's rotating and blah blah blah, whatever. Over the course of thousands of years, the constellations will start to be visible in different months, different parts of the years. So somebody who was born in February 2000 years ago versus somebody who was born in February today, they're going to see different constellations upon their birth in the sky. And all of the constellations, or all of the constellations represented in astrology, like astrology uses, it dates back however far, I don't even know, I would think at least a couple thousand years. And like if you're a Capricorn or whatever, and you go out and like it's your birth month, and you go out and you look at the sky, you're probably not going to see the Capricorn constellation, because now that, and I'm just throwing out, constellations, because I don't know how they're oriented with each other. But if you're a Capricorn because Capricorn is the constellation of your month, or at least it was a couple thousand years ago. But now if you go out during your Capricorn month and look at the sky, you might see Aquarius because it shifts. It's like, that's enough for me. Like if there were something like that equivalent to Christianity, I'd be like, I'm out, dog. I'm out. I'm not buying it anymore. So it's like,
Sure. So that ties into one note that I had, right? That historical reference to calendars. I would say that's because astrology is basing its timeliness on inaccurate calendars. And actually my question was, how did calendars look before the AD BC calendar system that was currently globally recognized? And there's a lot of different calendars out there: Gregorian calendars, Mayan calendars. There is a lot of local calendar systems that were based on the reigns of certain kings, right? So it'd be like in the fifth year, and that's actually biblical too. That's like a biblical Old Testament reference system, is in the fifth year of King Hezekiah, whatever. Um, I, yeah, I don't know. I would say that it's just inaccuracy based on that perception, but I'm a Pisces. And so if I look up into the sky and I
You're a
don't see,
Pisces shit. That's what you are. You're a Pisces
yeah,
shit.
but okay, so this is my actual experience of astrology in this life, right? I do not go out of my way to look into it. I don't believe in it. Do I believe in projecting parts of your consciousness onto reality and having that mean something? Yes, I believe in that. But I don't believe in going out of my way to get the local newspaper and being like, today's going to be positive with some shades of gray. Just like yesterday and just like tomorrow, so but um my actual like inner like dealings with astrology have been, well, you're a Pisces, but then there's like the far out, astrology people. But actually, if you were born in March, it shifted 1 month because of XYZ thing that you've never looked into that plays a huge factor in you knowing what the hell is going on in life. And that means you're actually one symbol shifted to the left on the chart. So you're not a Pisces. You just think you are, and so does the rest of the world. But and it's just like, you know what? This is bullshit. This is bullshit. You're bullshit. I can't believe I listened to you this long. Like that's my experience of astrology.
Now, that's a perfect example of when you should have just said samesies.
Right. Twice. But what if I did that? I'm just gonna start saying samesies.
I'm
Someday it's there.
extremely, I'm
Someday.
extremely racist. What about you?
No, I think that's wrong.
Oh man, let's talk. Let's get a little conspiratorial, shall we?
All right, I guess it's almost the end of March, beginning of April, so let's do it.
That's all I got. I was hoping you'd have a conspiracy theory in the chamber ready to fire my way. Did you
No,
see?
I know 9/11 was an inside job, but I feel
There's,
like that's already been out there for a while.
there's been a lot of stuff on in the Tweeterverse concerning China's president Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping. I would never pronounce that right. I could take I could take lessons. I could be tutored by a Chinese person for months, and I'd probably still butcher that name. But recently paid a visit to Moscow. Met with Mr. Putin, Pootin apostrophe, and I think they've recently entered into an agreement where they're going to start. Russia's going to start honoring. I don't know if it's the yuan. The yuan. I don't. I think it's spelled Yuan. Whatever China's like prominent currency is. They're going to start trading with maybe some African countries and some other Asian countries using China's currency. And I've heard that now supposedly there's whispers of Saudi Arabia entertaining the idea of replacing. So, like currently, one of the things that strengthens the US dollar is the fact that if you want to purchase oil from Saudi Arabia, you have to purchase oil from them via the US dollar. They'll only trade via USD. And that played a large role in strengthening the US dollar after the Treasury, the US Treasury, made the decision to no longer back, you know, the US dollar, dollar for dollar with physical gold.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly there would be significant negative consequences for the US economy and the US dollar and its role on the international level if the Chinese currency were to replace it as the primary trade currency for Saudi Arabian oil. And I recently read that the president of, I forget which African nation, is like warning the people, like his citizens, trying to get them to, like, if they have any US dollars, they need to like have them converted immediately because, he's, you know, feels like the US dollar is about to plummet. So there's like all these sort of whispers and there's all this stuff going on
It looks like
behind the
it's
scenes.
the president of Kenya.
President of Kenya.
Yep.
And there's like there's all this stuff that I'm seeing on the old Twitterverse going on that, like, I'm not hearing about any of it whenever I'm on the elliptical tuned into CNN for 5 minutes a day. And all I see whenever I turn to any mainstream news source is Donald Trump to be indicted next week. Donald Trump's indictment has been postponed.
He didn't get arrested, did he?
No.
Ah,
No. And then I don't know if you know anything about this character, but there's a prominent Chinese media figure. I think his name is Miles Guo. Don't ask me who gave him. Maybe he was adopted, and that's where the Miles comes from, because that doesn't sound
Miles
super.
Knightley is the only Miles I know.
Doesn't sound super Oriental to me, but that's whatever. Anyways, Miles Guo, I think, was the president or CEO or founder or whatever of some major news network. I forget what it's called. Maybe like GTV or something. I don't know. I think they were the news network responsible for originally leaking the Hunter Biden laptop files. So some shadowy figure gets a hold of Hunter Biden's laptop hard drive, leaks something like 25,000 different media files and emails and whatnot, most of which are just like him having sex with prostitutes and doing heroin and crack and cocaine and supposedly like sexual acts with minors, like real young minors. And
An age, not just a profession.
yeah, not not the musical note, the
Sure.
youngins.
Yeah.
And then even some sort of like sexual films with, like, I think maybe his niece. Like there's some some shady sort of incest stuff supposedly in these files. And I went down a freaking rabbit hole a few nights ago, and I just spent like hours going through. And bro, dude's got a hog. Hunter Biden is a freaking hog. So I get it. Like, you got a little schmeckle like that, you probably smash that record button every time the pants drop. But it's the sort of like I've seen a lot of the videos, and it's there's one where he's like doing he's smoking crack after having sex with a prostitute, and he's talking to the prostitute about how he thinks these Russian guys he had been partying with stole uh, his laptop, or stole some information from him. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, if these files are from the laptop, how is this file of him talking about the stolen laptop on said laptop? So, anyways, this guy who's the head of this news network, Miles Guo, um, he's obviously like related to China in some sense. I don't know if he's associated with the CCP or
Say that
whatever,
about
but
those Chinese people, eh?
but he apparently he has been put in prison, and the FBI raided his apartment, and his apartment got set on fire like at the same time the FBI was there.
So this Miles Guo story just
Coincidence?
got us a little COVID misinformation sticker, probably on Spotify. This.
I'm not saying that this guy's going to get Epsteined for his leaking of Hunter Biden's hog, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. You know, to your so the point about the like the Twitter thing. We talked what it was a week ago, week and a half ago, where Trump had tweeted something to the effect of, "I'm about to be indicted this Tuesday, XYZ, whatever," right? And then as time plays out, you get the little snippet, and then you go, "Oh, well, it's been extended." And so then you think back. So you take that snippet of your life that was included in that real time tweet, the talks with your friends, the hubbadub, wubbadub, something like that. And
Wubba lubba dub dub.
the MCA. And then you play that back after knowing the end of it. And you're like, wow, I received this information way downstream through a very tailored process of multiple institutions changing and critiquing and modifying the content to provide an outcome that's beneficial to something. Like, does it seem like that to you? That's my response when I take in content like that. It's like, oh well, I got all worked up because there's you know the ex president of the United States is going to get, and I personally didn't, but this is an example where it's like I got all worked up because he's going to be indicted, and that's bullshit because and it's like, but then he wasn't. So all of in my mind, all of that emotional, output, that's nonsense, right? That's nonsense. It doesn't matter. It's like, what could you have done in that time? You could have created a song. You could have spent time learning how to play guitar. You could have jacked off. I don't know, something more productive than just taking part in this stream of information that's output and worked with that ultimately does not matter. Like, does that seem extreme? What do you think of that? Like,
I think I think I understand what you're saying, and I think I agree with you. Now, I'm not writing anything in stone, but if I were gonna continue to flex my conspiracy muscle, I would point out the fact that I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure while all of that Trump indictment drama was going on, and that's all you were seeing anytime you turned on any media, like any news network. At the same time,
are
behind
you
the
still
scenes,
Hunter Biden?
at the same time, behind the scenes, Miles Groh was getting arrested, and the FBI set his apartment on fire. So it's like, nah.
Because why was he getting arrested again? We talked about this because of he took uh, like $4,000 worth of uh,
No. So that's something that I had read when people were first starting to talk about the possibility of him being indicted. He
it was
this and this was for the hush money he paid to the porn star Stormy Daniels.
right. And this
Yeah,
was the same dialogue that was used how many years ago? Or
four, five. Yeah.
yeah, right. So it's like it's like you can just recycle content as long as it's willing to be interacted with. That's my point. And then my point is that's a waste of time. Where if you get recycled content from some news agency and you're willing to buy into that, you're wasting your time.
If
You'd
you're
be like,
listening,
how many people? And I like Stormy Daniels, for the record. I don't know Stormy Daniels, so go ahead.
oh, I'm sure you'd recognize her if you saw her. If you're listening to this, I do not think you should assassinate all of our major politicians and media figures. That would be
I
a bad thing.
I
I do
agree.
not think our nation would benefit from Biden, Harris, Trump, Pelosi, the Clintons, the talking heads on CNN, not even the talking heads, but the powers that be that are pulling the strings behind the scenes at CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC. Disney,
Microsoft,
all of them. I do not think our world would be a
anyone,
better place without Bill Gates or George Soros. I
Mark
do,
Zuckerberg.
yep, I do not think anyone should go out of their way to hurt these people. I
I
mean,
agree.
so what? They've made some decisions that have been extremely detrimental to our own personal liberties and freedoms as Americans. And like, who gives a damn if regimes are using, if like terrorist organizations are using, I don't know, just harmless applications like Facebook to topple, governments in third world African countries, and who really cares if Ukraine is also a bad guy? Like, it's still, Russia's still in the wrong, right? Like, I don't give a damn that Ukraine is the number one country for money laundering whenever it comes to, shadowy figures in US politicians, international affairs. It's like, that doesn't matter. And I don't think the world would be a better place without Putin, Zelensky, or Biden. But I don't know. I don't know.
Think
Maybe,
about it.
maybe you could make an argument that that's an idea worth entertaining, but I would no. Violence is never the answer.
No, I wouldn't support that. And
Violence is never the answer.
TikTok feeding information to China and it possibly being banned in the US and stuff, I would disregard all of that. I would let that just ride out and keep using TikTok as much as you think, or even if you don't think about using it, just keep doing it. Just
I
keep
love
keep
TikTok. I love TikTok, and honestly, if I were the Chinese Communist Party, I wouldn't manipulate data or information obtained by, a major corporation operating within my nation's jurisdiction, and I certainly wouldn't be hosting, you know, sort of covert operations within the United States, the land and the market. I wouldn't be, derailing chemical trains and stealing corporate information and manipulating personal what's it called, personal, when you come up with something, an idea, and then that's your personal
patent.
intellectual property. Yeah, I wouldn't be
You don't have much of that,
stealing.
eh?
No, obviously. Listen, all I'm trying to say is things are pretty good. It seems like they're only getting better, and we owe a great deal of gratitude to the deep state, and we should lock up anybody who says otherwise.
Well, I would say this, that whatever you're doing because you naturally fell into doing it, say like TikTok, Instagram, posting videos of yourself doing ridiculously mundane things day in and day out, or half nude, claiming that you're a Christian in a secure relationship, I would just say keep doing that. That's what I would say buy into it at whatever rate you've currently been marketed to buy into it. Uh,
And while you're at it, probably a good idea to take your toddler to a drag show. And on your way there,
if you're any
if
kind of
you've
open minded, yeah.
if you've got, a child, if you got another child, like an older child, maybe between the ages of like 7 and 16, like if that child is down to like have their pecker chopped off, or, the fat tissue removed from their breasts, it's like, why not? Why not? Just
You
do
would
it.
be limiting them if you didn't.
Yeah.
You'd be severely limiting them. Yeah.
Even if your son identifies as a boy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. His frontal lobe's not fully developed. The kid's probably a girl. And you need to get ahead of it. You need to get ahead of the problem. You need to turn that Audi into an innie, or he's going to pay.
I I would even think that like our job actually should be to change genders. Like I feel like that sounds bold now because we're just at this ridiculously late part of a patriarchy that's clearly falling not fast enough. Um, but the job of modern people with current thinking and in any kind of intellect should be to change the gender of their child. So if it's a boy, I'm using patriarchy terms, and that's my own fault. But if it's a boy, quote unquote, at birth, if it has a penis, um, that's a female. And if you're not doing your part to to work on providing insight into that, um, I feel like you're also wasting your time. And the reverse is true. If they have a vagina at birth, that's a male. And I feel like if you're not taking part in, using your spare time to bring light to that, you're probably wasting your time.
In other news, have you heard anything about San Francisco's recent political push to divvy out reparations to African American citizens in San Francisco?
No, that's weird. I was on Twitter all day, but I haven't seen this.
I'm not trying to set up a one liner here. I'm being dead serial, bro.
What is it?
Dead
1,000?
serial.
It's not enough. Should be 2,000 a month per week. 2,000 a
Bro,
week.
I'm about to pop yo mental cherry. San Francisco committee suggests $5 million reparations for each eligible black resident.
That won't pass. There's no way.
Oh, surely not. This is something that they want every black person in San Francisco and California and probably the whole
Absolutely.
nation to see leading up to the upcoming campaign uh, months.
That's absurd.
That's not even
See
like
that much money in the GDP? 5 million for every. Is that even a vial? Is that a total number that we can work with?
well,
I
they're
can't
gonna
do
have to. They they've got a really good. I'll give them this. They've got a good concept, like a. It seems like a working strategy to me. They're
like
going.
making up for the Civil War. Or,
No, they're going to take all of the homeless in San Francisco and they're going to put them in a giant vat and they're going to melt them and they're going to process their biological energy and they're going to sell it to San Francisco Energy Company. And the homeless people, it sounds like a lose lose for them, but they're actually going to get tax credits once they've been melted, and they're going to use the profits that they get back from the San Francisco Energy Company to fund the $5 million per black person. I don't know if you've been to San Francisco lately, but there's only a million black people there, so it's not that much money.
you mean homeless or black?
The same thing. So fucked up. Oh, it's
Yeah,
obviously
Michigan.
not the same thing.
Yeah,
Could you
obviously,
imagine?
lots
Could
of.
could you imagine if a city, and I obviously as a young white man, I've not done an awful lot of thinking about what valid argument there is to support reparations, and if reparations were to be a thing, like what kind of number do you put on that? But could you imagine what would happen in a major US city if they were just like, we're going to give all of the black people $5 million? I mean, I would leave the
That,
city. I would just
but that
move.
that's the same as saying like, okay, now, okay, it, the the question where it's like, hey, if you found a genie in a bottle, right? You had three wishes. What would the wishes be? And the first one is usually it's always in context of a quick conversation with someone that you probably don't really know that well. And it's like, oh shit, like I would wish for infinite Oreos. You're like, oh, okay. And then the next one is like a Lamborghini for sure. Like I would buy a Lamborghini. The next one is like, I would want all my family to be taken care of. Okay. Now, I'm obviously downplaying it to fit into what I'm saying,
The
but
genie
when I
just kills everybody in your family. There,
right,
taken care of.
a lot of comedians have done that bit. So, uh, and if you're James Acaster, you just say infinite genies. That's your first wish because you're like, loophole. Like then I have more friends. But $5 million would be the infinite genie for most inner city living people, black, white, or otherwise. Right? That would be it. Like if you're living in some inner city and you're not above the 50% threshold of that city, I would say $5 million would be that bottle with a genie in it. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. That it's like, oh yeah, we'll just issue out that's and to me, that's a fantastical strategy that's not grounded in reality. Like that's like, oh yeah, just to make up for the past, we're going to go ahead and give you 5 million US dollars. Meanwhile, try giving people in Kenya 5 million US dollars. Fuck that. The president's like, yo, get rid of that. That doesn't mean shit. We want yen.
Well, you see, so I don't think this is going to happen, right? I don't think San Francisco is going to divvy out five, and it wasn't even just $5 million. Like they proposed a lot of different things. It was like $5 million plus an additional $90,000 a year for you, or maybe it was no, I think it was
You take
5 million.
notes.
Pump the brakes. I think it was $5 million up front, plus an additional $250,000 a year for the next 90 years for you and like your children or grandchildren. And so it was like it was
People live that long?
no, I think the I think their lifespan is like average is like a little bit less than the average.
Let's not put a number on it.
Yeah.
Let's just not.
Yeah. I'm sorry, brothers. I'm sorry, brothers. But I so San Francisco, I would not put it past because like you could justify it if you're somebody like Gavin Newsom, who's presumably worth, I would think, probably at least a few tens of millions of dollars. Right? I don't know. Try to figure out what Gavin Newsom's net worth is. And you're also kind of like what you got? You got it?
Yeah, so something to the effect of 20 million.
Okay. So on top of that, you're also like a deep state figure because Gavin Newsom isn't just the governor of California. He's also, for many years, the Democratic Party has obviously been trying to prime him and prep him for presidency one day. And I think, who is his aunt? He's got an aunt in politics, and it might be Nancy Pelosi. I don't think it is. That would be too ridiculous.
Let's see. Prominent San Francisco, and sister Pelosi has a brother named Paul who married Nancy, who then became Nancy Pelosi. Nancy is Newsom's aunt by marriage.
Okay. So you've got
Well,
the
still, that whole
yeah.
like by marriage thing. It's interesting how that relates.
Yep. So he's not just like he's not the difference between him and like when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California, totally different levels. Because Arnold was like, well, an actor and bodybuilder, and
Foreigner.
Gavin Newsom is like straight up, like he's. I don't know if he's part of what you would consider the deep state, but Nancy Pelosi definitely is. And it's very obvious that they've been trying to prep this guy to be president one day. And it's like if you're the Speaker of the House, you're like third person, and like if the president dies and the vice president dies, I think Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, becomes the acting president. And it's like, yeah, why the hell wouldn't she want her nephew to be president one day? And she's the third most powerful, arguably, probably actually the second most powerful politician in the country. And if you're operating at that political level and you're already worth $20 million and you see what's going on behind the scenes and you see the prominent influence of shadowy figures operating out of like the World Economic Forum to, you know, one day hopefully replace one day soon hopefully replace the US dollar with some sort of like global currency. It's like, sure, fuck it, why not? It'll help me secure votes. Let's give all of my black voters $5 million. And then that's only going to increase your like moral value to all of the non-black voters that are super progressive too, because they're going to be like, he had the courage to do the right thing that should have been done decades ago. And I'm not saying that the idea of reparations isn't worth entertaining. I don't think anything good could come from giving every black person in a city $5 million. And I'm pretty confident that the only reason why this ideas being entertained at all, at least at that level, is because there's some really important voting dates coming up in the not so distant future, and they want it's like the way that student loan forgiveness was manipulated in recent presidential elections. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I might be super conservative, but if I think that the next president or the next Democratic, if I think the current Democrat candidate could wind up forgiving my $80,000 in student loans if they get elected, it's like, brother, I might just not be super conservative this election cycle. I'll vote
Got
conservative in 4 years.
levers for holding
Yeah.
your arm.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's a grand conspiracy to manipulate black voters, but it could be. I don't know, brother.
I'd say it's not good to give $5 million to anybody living in an entire city, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that's your like, because that's not realistic. And, like, it's not a realistic standard to have in life with constraints, with other dependencies in the economy. I made a joke about GDP earlier. I'm that ignorant. I don't know currently what the GDP is of the US.
It's a
Um,
dozen.
but it's like, can you look it up actually while I'm talking real quick? Can you look up the last year's GDP? Uh, but that's not realistic. That's not a realistic thing to propose. And it seems like there's a lot of modern day narratives or modern day proposals across the board in like a very generalized sense that don't have reality with its constraints involved in their creation. So it's like, well, we'll just like, and you could, yeah, you can make that case for a lot of things. Do you have the number? Do you know what it is?
25 trillion.
25 trillion. Okay, so if you take 300 million, 350 million people, population of the U.S., 5 million, you're looking at 1 point. Okay, so it's possible, right? So that's conceivable. But when you take into account the different types of stations that money's involved in, from different businesses to the actual physical US dollars to all those things combined, um, that's not a realistic standard. You can't just give $5 million to everybody. Like, who's giving the $5 million? At some point
Well,
that becomes the question.
taxpayers.
And
Taxpayers.
then how, and then so it's like, so
Yeah.
then, and this is how you can go, right? If you aren't grounded in reality, you can be like, well, if everyone had $5 million, we could all pay more taxes. You're like, but wait a minute, that's not how the cycle goes. Like, the whole point is goods and services based on resources on Earth, based on skills, based on the
Well,
interaction of people, and such.
I
So
could be wrong, but if I were a politician and I seriously wanted to give $5 million to every black citizen living in San Francisco, I would
certainly
probably
announce that before your voting season.
definitely definitely, and then I would probably get with some of the local tech superstars operating in Silicon Valley, and I would be like, hey guys, do you mind if I just join you on your next ayahuasca retreat? I would like to visit these dark elves that you guys are going and meeting in the psychedelic forest to see if they'd be willing to cough up some of the funds required to pay all these black people. That's what I would do.
Maybe they don't have US dollars, but they got something that'll convert to it. What kind of currency do you think machine elves have?
I don't know, dude. It's not pesos. Pretty confident it's not pesos. It could be US dollars. Maybe crypto. It's probably something chemical, though. It's probably gold. Gold's chemical. It's probably just gold.
Yeah, or cookies, like the Keebler elf thing. And Matt, right? It's the circumstance of life that creates value for things. So if you're on an island with no food, period, in this ridiculous scenario, and someone gives you 100,000 gold or 100,000 Keebler elf cookies, you're like, well, turns out those are more valuable. And it's the same for society, except we have the maximum available resources for any analogy. So it's like if we can trade with China and Saudi Arabia and uh, Egypt and the U.S. and China, if all those things can interact somehow, then it becomes ridiculous because you're like, cookies are not the value system, right? But I would agree. I think that's probably what they would do.
I yeah, bro. The FBI burned down Miles Grove's apartment. Pass the word. Miles Grove's in the Miles Grove's in the jail. Pass the word.
Bad
Listen,
Miles in the jail cell.
are you dogs out or dogs in right now?
I'm dogs twice in. I got socks and slippers on.
It's cold, eh?
It's no, it's not. I just like being cozy.
Interesting. You don't strike me as a cozy fella. I never warmed up to you, so
What
I
about
figured you
you?
probably never warmed up to yourself. I'm dogs out, bro. All day, every day.
Now, is dogs out? Can you be wearing Crocs, sockless, and be dogs out?
Definitely. Yeah, because your puppers could still breathe in that situation because the perforations in the Crocs. You know.
This is how I consider dogs out and dogs in, right? And this is a statement that you heard recently. Someone said, "Oh, your dog's out." I think if you can spill something at least a sitting height and your shoes and your toes don't get wet within 5 seconds, your dog's in. So it has to be 5 seconds. So like if you're drinking, you spill a beer, if in within 5 seconds. Now if you have say some good work boots or something, you're it's hours, maybe days.
I
You're
think you're
always
making this
dogs
more
out.
complicated than it needs to be. I'm dogs out, bro.
No.
You hear that? That was not me.
Would
That
you
was
have a dog on the boat?
I would. Yeah.
What the shit?
Yeah. I've got mental health issues though, especially whenever it comes to my extreme affection towards canines. Like personally,
I don't get it. I don't. I think that makes me emotionally devoid.
no. No, I think you're just a bad person. Um yeah, I don't know. So I feel like I'm not who the Lord intended me to be if I'm not cleaning up dog shit every day. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Nothing. You don't want to apologize for my sins for me? Nothing. You're just gonna leave me hanging. You'll watch me burn.
I'm
I'm
gonna do
sorry.
that later in private.
Listen, it's not super obvious how what I just said was sacrilegious, but obviously I feel like I crossed the line there. And when we're done with this, I'm gonna go, go ahead and smash that beg for forgiveness button. So you ought to do the same. You're guilty by association. So that should be a soundbite, a button,
That's dude.
or a sound
That's
pad.
what it should be instead of subscribe. You know how it's like everywhere subscribe, so it should be like smash that beg for forgiveness button.
If you're listening to this, whip the dogs out, smash that forgiveness button, put something controversial in the comment section, say something mean about Josh,
Imagine
say
imagine this. Chat GPT 4. So if you right click on your browser, your internet browser right now from your computer, and you go inspect source, you can see the button that says subscribe.
is that
You can see
soars like SORES?
OURCE.
Oh, okay. Got it. Tracking.
You can see that button's code, right? So imagine having Chat GPT 4. You're like, hey, Chat GPT 4. Hopefully they name something better like Charles. Um, Rewrite the subscribe button on YouTube to be beg for forgiveness on every page that I load from here until I say otherwise. So Like, oh, that'd be gold. If they could just do that, if there was like a layer, because that's considered user interface, right? So that's what's served from YouTube. But then Chat GPT could be on your local computer and be like, I'm going to rewrite the source code and provide you an individualized experience that could be racist, sexist, sacrilege, otherwise.
Now you're speaking my
Now
AI
you're thinking.
language. It's no longer called an AI language model. They start referring to it as like a uh, AI language felon or something, like something not to be modeled. It's like just
I think that's just one example of many where that could get really out of hand, right?
it's
Like
gonna
you
get
could just
it's gonna get wild, and it's like within the next 5 years, things are gonna get scary, wild, and I don't know how, but it's gonna affect everything. I think it's gonna affect news. It's gonna affect relationships. It's gonna affect pornography and writing and speech and pop culture and no one's like you're gonna watch things. You're gonna be like, is this real? Is that a real person or is that an AI generated video? You're like, I don't know. I don't know.
well, South Park, that one episode, right? That summed it up pretty well. It's like it's still gold. South Park is consistently gold, but how it goes through that, Eric and his friends in school using Chat GPT to create text responses to their girlfriends, and their girlfriend believes that they're this caring, emotionally available, very interested male figure to them. And then meanwhile, they're just taking a shit, just playing video games, hitting Chat GPT, copy it into Chat GPT, create a response, paste it into text, send. And then but it expands from that into creating essays for school. And then the teacher who's grading them is just grading them using Chat GPT. It was funny, but the point is there. It's like, I agree. I think it's going to get ridiculous.
What do you say we smash that leave button, conclude this mother trucker, check it out, make sure it uploads properly, and then if you want to, we can record another one. It doesn't matter to me. If we do, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go grab a 6 pack, or we could just call it. But we're out of here. Deuces, douches.
You smash it. You got the button.
I got the button, baby. I got the power.
See ya.
All right, I ended it. Now go ahead and say something real nasty about our listeners.
No, no, it's still recording. I can see it.